In my past life, I supported Ji Yuzhou's lofty ambitions, elevating him to a position of high esteem and respect, yet he claimed that being my child groom stripped him of his dignity, and he resented me for a lifetime in this life. After Ji Yuzhou was reborn, he secretly swapped me out when I was less than 2 days old. He let a fake heiress take my place, becoming the wife he had meticulously chosen. I was abandoned at the doorstep of an orphanage, only to be luckily found and tenderly raised by an old general. When we met again, he was the child groom living a life worse than a dog's beside the fake heiress. While I was the spirited young professor on campus, Ji Yuzhou begged me through tears to save him, but I just tilted my head and replied with an innocent yet cruel tone, "You're not worthy." I woke up in the hospital nursery. The identity bracelet on my wrist was carefully removed. I opened my eyes and looked over. "He is my child bridegroom, Ji Yuzhou." His expression was grave. Only after he had securely fastened the wristband onto another baby girl's hand did he finally show a hint of a smile. "This is the wife I personally chose." Taking advantage of the early morning before the sky fully brightened, he secretly smuggled me out of the hospital in a simple bamboo basket. The 6-year-old boy carried me, stumbling all the way. I don't know how long we walked. The body suddenly sank. Ji Yuzhou threw me at the back door of the orphanage. He couldn't wait to leave, yet, as if unable to withstand the torment of his conscience, he turned back. Ji Yuzhou bent down. He touched my warm face, his voice trembling. "Don't blame me for being ungrateful. If you must blame someone, blame yourself for being too good to me in your past life. You were so good that no matter what achievements I, as a child groom, made, they were all credited to you. But I am also a man. I also want to compete and win. I also need self-respect." Ji Yuzhou steeled his heart and removed the torn cloth that had been muffling my cries. "In this lifetime, I truly don't want to be held back by you anymore." He ran as fast as he could, afraid that he might change his mind, and terrified that his act of abandoning the infant would be discovered. The July sky was heavy with oppressive heat, yet, wrapped in a thick quilt, I felt as if I had fallen into an icy abyss, chilled to the bone. The Ji family had a poor class background in those times. They were looked down upon and lived a life of hardship. After the death of his uncle and aunt, Ji Yuzhou was passed around like trash among his relatives. No one was willing to take him in. He spent half a year as a little beggar on the streets before he met my parents, who had just moved in. Our Sioux family ancestors were of the Dai ethnicity. They have always adhered to the matrilineal society's practice of women marrying men. Seeing that Ji Yuzhou was unwanted, the family took him in. As a child groom, I treated Ji Yuzhou extremely well. I never even had a single argument with him, let alone hitting or scolding. I was willing to spend money on Ji Yuzhou for everything, from having enough to eat and good clothes to wear, to learning to read and write, and even later, for his university education. At home, it was often said that Ji Yuzhou was a cripple, and I was his crutch. We couldn't raise him too well otherwise. When Ji Yuzhou could walk on his own, the first one to be thrown away would be me, but I didn't listen to the advice. I always naively believed I treated Ji Yuzhou so well, it wouldn't happen. He will never find someone as good as me again. He can't bear to let me go. Later, Ji Yuzhou stayed at the university as a researcher, but because of his problematic background, no one was willing to collaborate with Ji Yuzhou on research. I gave up the research topic I loved and instead joined him in studying his step by step. I accompanied and supported him until Ji Yuzhou became the esteemed Professor Ji, but as the years passed and old age set in, Ji Yuzhou lay bedridden in his final days, as if he had nothing left to hold back. His gaze was clear and sharp as he forcefully pushed away my supporting hand, accusing me. "Suko, I'd rather have been a beggar on the streets for the rest of my life than be your child groom again. At the very least, that way I would have lived with some dignity." The pain felt like 1,000 swords piercing my heart. I was good to him all my life. So good that in the end I lost even myself. Yet in the end, in Ji Yuzhou's heart, not even a single thank you was ever spoken. A virtuous wife lifts me to lofty ambitions. Once I achieve success, I first cast aside the one I loved. When the day comes that power is in my hands, I'll trample her grave to welcome a new bride. Ji Yuzhou, your heart is truly ruthless. Overwhelming grief made me sob uncontrollably, but an infant's body is too fragile. Even the summer cicadas' chirping was louder than my cries. The back door of the orphanage had long been forgotten. Leaving me here was no different from sending me to my death. In my past life, Ji Yuzhou, with tears in his smile, promised he would never let me down in this lifetime, but in this life, the first thing he did after being reborn was to eagerly abandon me. He personally selected a new wife, stealing my life away. I am filled with hatred. I am filled with regret. My consciousness slowly fades into darkness. The clouds drifted across the sky, but my eyes could no longer focus until a woman's voice came From inside the courtyard, Director, the deputy mayor just stopped by. He said an old senior official from the capital will be passing by later and wants to inspect our orphanage. He told us to keep things low-key for the reception, and we might get some more donations. Hearing voices, I tried to force my throat to make some more noise, but there was none. Even the rustling of the broom in the courtyard could drown out my faint sobs. I was in despair, abandoning myself to despair. I let myself sink into the darkness. I don't know how much time had passed until the sharp screech of a car's brakes jolted me awake. The driver shouted loudly, "Chief, there's actually a child here." I heard the sound of someone hurriedly getting out of the car to check. An aged hand gently touched my face, bringing a sense of comfort. "Director, could you prepare some rice porridge? This child can't even cry anymore. If she doesn't eat something soon, I'm afraid she'll starve to death," the dean responded. Repeatedly, a spoonful after spoonful of rice porridge entered my mouth, and I came back to life. The old chief just held me like that, standing under the leaky eaves, gently soothing me. He looked at me, his eyes reddening. "When my girl was just born, she was this tiny too. Back then, the family was poor, and whatever little money we had went to the revolution. The girl didn't even have rice porridge to drink. Later, when times got better, she died on the battlefield and never came back. You probably don't know, my girl went to the Yalu River. During the war, she was so brave." The old commander couldn't go on. A choked voice cut off all the unspoken words. He made up his mind. "Let me raise this child. My daughter left today, and this child arrived today. Let it be a keepsake for me." Before leaving, the old chief donated most of his savings. The leaky eaves, the moldy rice paste, and the children's thin blankets could all be replaced. The old chief gently pressed his forehead against mine and smiled. "Little one, from now on, you must call me Grandpa." The car headed towards the train station, and we journeyed northward. I followed my grandfather and settled down in Beijing, 1,000 miles away. At home, it was just my grandfather and me. My grandmother passed away early. After sending her daughter away back then, she stayed behind in Nanjing. Later, when the Japanese invaders attacked, she died in an air raid. Their only daughter, without telling my grandfather, joined the war to resist U.S. aggression and aid Korea and fell. In the icy, snowy north, Grandpa adopted me when he was sending them back to their roots. He was a grassroots general who crawled out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood. He didn't know many characters. He specially invited the retired chief of staff Zhou from the neighboring courtyard to give me my name, Old Song. The girl's name is Qinghuan. How about that? Qinghuan. Qinghuan is good. Song Qinghuan. Our girl will be called Song Qinghuan. Grandpa held me, grinning foolishly. He didn't understand the deeper meaning, only barely recognizing these two characters. Qing means clean, Huan means happy, pure happiness. Grandfather thought it was good, and I thought so too. Years passed in a flash, and we, grandfather and grandson, leaned on each other as we grew up and grew old. As an adult, I never mentioned the past of that small southern town. My grandfather raised me. No matter what, I have to stay, to be with him. The year I graduated early with my doctorate, I successfully stayed on at the university, becoming the youngest professor in the school's history. Grandpa brags to everyone, boasting that I've brought him great honor. Later, during the new student enrollment, I stood at the university entrance helping to guide the influx of countless young faces. I looked up and met a familiar gaze, Ji Yuzhou. He had grown noticeably thinner, carrying large and small bags as he walked inside. The moment he saw me, it was as if a stormy sea had erupted in his eyes. He froze in place. It wasn't until the girl beside him tugged impatiently at his sleeve that he snapped out of it. The young girl walked straight toward me, smiling as she asked, "Senior, is this the math department?" "I'm Su Shiyue, a freshman in the math department, here to report to my advisor. This is my family member, also a freshman, Ji Yuzhou from the literature department." It suddenly dawned on me, this girl, I knew her in my past life, so she was the wife that Ji Yuzhou had so carefully chosen. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly, marveling at how fate truly is a farcical comedy. "Classmate, you can register here with me. I'm not your senior. To be serious, you should call me teacher." What? Both exclaimed in unison, prompting Professor Jing from the College of Liberal Arts nearby to lean over and explain. No need to be surprised. Almost everyone who came to report to Professor Song this morning had the same reaction. "Let me introduce you, Song Qinghuan, the youngest professor at our university. She's beautiful and gentle, very easy to get along with. She rarely takes on students, so you're very lucky this year." The wind swept through the sycamore-lined avenue, lifting the hem of my pure white long skirt. I smiled and, like a teacher meeting them for the first time, helped them complete their registration and assign them their dorm rooms. I waved to them and watched as they left, polite yet distant. That girl was named Zhao Yi in her past life. She is the daughter of the Zhao family next door, widow Zhao died in childbirth, and Zhao Yi became an orphan just a few days after she was born at the request of widow Zhao. Until Zhao Yi comes of age, our family is entrusted with safeguarding Zhao Yi's inheritance and, in the process, keeping an eye on her. With the expenses covered by the estate, we are the same age, but our personalities are worlds apart. Zhao is warm and cheerful, smooth and worldly in her dealings, yet also possesses the independent, free-spirited, and positive nature of a modern woman. Because they are both orphans, she can really connect with Ji Yuzhou occasionally. When I see them being overly intimate, I feel a bit uncomfortable, but Ji Yuzhou often says, "You come from a happy family. How could you understand the pain in the heart of an orphan like me, raised as a child groom?" We share similar experiences with Zhao Yi. It's just a case of misery-loving company. He said it pitifully. I was too busy feeling sorry for him to stop him. Looking back now, this might be why he let Zhao Yi take over my life. In Ji Yuzhou's world, only from Zhao Yi can he regain a bit of self-respect, but it doesn't matter anymore. In this life, I am not Su Ke, but Song Qinghuan. She is not Zhao Yi, but Su Shiyue. I personally returned the self-respect he, Ji Yuzhou, wanted. We are strangers to each other. That is already the merciful ending I granted. But I never expected Ji Yuzhou would take the initiative to seek me out. In the evening, I locked up the office and prepared to head to the cafeteria for a meal. At the corner, Ji Yuzhou had been waiting for me for quite some time. "Teacher Song," he called out to me softly. I paused slightly, nodded, and said, "Hello." Then I walked past him without even glancing sideways. He stood frozen in place. It seemed he finally realized that in this lifetime, I truly didn't know him. He was somewhat unwilling to accept it. He jogged to catch up with me and blocked my path. "Teacher Song, wait." I stopped in my tracks, looking at him suspiciously. "What do you want?" Ji Yuzhou's breathing was a bit hurried. "Teacher Song, I have a friend who looks a lot like you. Do you know Suko? Or do you like finance? Are you doing any research related to finance? Would you like to work on a finance-related research project with me?" I know Ji Yuzhou is testing me. Every single thing he mentioned were the things I did with him in my past life. Although I don't know why Ji Yuzhou, who clearly liked finance, chose literature in this life, but having been reborn, I no longer wanted to acknowledge him. I frowned, feeling displeased with Ji Yuzhou's presumptuousness. "Permission? I don't know. Also, my doctoral research is in computer science, and I have no involvement in finance-related topics. If you want a mentor to guide you in your research, you'd better get admitted as a graduate student at our university. At the undergraduate level, you should focus on studying hard. Classmate, don't aim too high too soon." I assumed the full posture of a teacher. After offering him a few words of advice, I turned and walked away. Ji Yuzhou stood there in a daze, caught completely off guard. I knew exactly what he was thinking, hoping to recognize me again, putting on a show of affection, stepping on my shoulders to support his lofty ambitions. Once blinded by love, I couldn't see the desire and ambition mixed in his eyes. Now I've come to my senses. I just felt utterly disgusted. I simply couldn't understand. He already had Su Shiyue, the one he had been longing for. Why did he have to come and pester me again? But soon, the salacious gossip spreading across campus gave me the answer. "Did you know, today in the literature department, there was someone named Ji Yuzhou who, in order to transfer departments and pay his tuition fees, publicly knelt down to his wife." My pen paused for a moment, lifting my head from the textbook. I curiously pricked up my ears to listen to the idle chatter of my classmates during the break. The girl in the front row spoke with great enthusiasm. "Ji Yuzhou is Su Shiyue's child groom, probably doesn't have much status at home either. He chose to study literature back then because Su Shiyue insisted on it. Something about poetry and literature being able to cultivate one's character. Ji Yuzhou might have changed his mind after suddenly going to college, but Su Shiyue probably doesn't agree." Suddenly, she stopped speaking, because the person in question had entered. Su Shiyue walked into the classroom with Ji Yuzhou. The previously noisy classroom suddenly fell silent, and everyone's gaze turned in unison. Ji Yuzhou's face bore a bright red slap mark. He buried his head even lower. The bell rang, and I stood up to continue the lesson. Even if I intentionally avoided it, I could still feel Ji Yuzhou's scorching gaze fixed on me. When class ended, Ji Yuzhou cast a pleading look my way. I turned my face away, pretending not to see. He was furious. He took the initiative to step forward and speak to me. "Teacher, can you help me? Su Shiyue treats me very poorly." As soon as the words were spoken, Su Shiyue walked over. She kicked Ji Yuzhou in the calf and scolded him angrily. "What nonsense are you spouting in front of Teacher Song?" "Teacher, we're an old married couple. We were just fooling around. Don't take it to heart." I pretended to be completely unaware and instead smiled as I advised Ji Yuzhou. "Your wife is willing to support you through college, which is already quite remarkable. You should be more understanding of her. Jiuzhou was left speechless, his eyes swirling with emotion, as if there were 1,000 words to say to me, but I just smiled. I won't interfere in your marital affairs, teacher, something like self-respect. Do you even deserve it? A few casual words blocked all possibilities. Jiuzhou's face drained of all color. I picked up the book and brushed past Jiuzhou. Slap. A crisp sound echoed from behind. Su Shiryue was displeased with Jiuzhou's act of tattling. The other half of his face was now also marked with a handprint. The curious classmates cast their glances. I also turned to look back, gazing at Jiuzhou with a cold and disdainful expression. This is the path you chose yourself. Such self-respect. Jiuzhou was wounded by my gaze and turned his face away. Nua. Su Shiryue apologized. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken out of turn. Su Shiryue was satisfied. Like a victorious general, he left with his captured slave in tow. Sitting in the office, I recalled the stifled resentment and bitterness on Jiuzhou's face today. Pitiful, isn't it? I only felt a sense of relief, unable to hold back a light laugh in the office. Teacher, do you think that as a child groom, I deserve it? Jiuzhou had come over at some point without me noticing. He didn't even knock on the door. He strode in, inexplicably venting his anger at me. Teacher Song, do you find it so amusing to see me get beaten up? Why didn't you help me? Why on earth didn't you help me? Or do you think that I, Jiuzhou, am born lowly and deserve to have my dignity trampled on? He gripped my wrist tightly, leaving a dark bruise all around. Just like before, no real man's fate, but all the sickness of a man's ego. I was wrong. I shouldn't have pretended not to recognize him, this kind of persistent, parasitic scum from the very first day we met again. I should have dug him out completely. I let out a light laugh, looking up to meet Jiuzhou's gaze. What right does a murderer have to ask for dignity? Don't you remember, at the back door of the orphanage, you killed the real daughter of the Su family? Jiuzhou suddenly let go of my hand. He stumbled backward, his eyes wide as he stared at me. You really are Suko. You're not dead. Are you trying to get revenge on me? Then, he frantically pressed his hand against mine. No, you love me, otherwise, why would you say all this to me? You must still love me. Save me, help me get away from Su Shiryue. I forcefully pulled my hand away, picking up the neatly folded handkerchief nearby. I wiped my hands, then threw it into the trash can. You think I'm dirty? I rolled my eyes at him. Otherwise, Jiuzhou, what kind of person do you think you are? I grabbed the corner of his clothes and dragged him to the honor wall behind us. Would you like me to read it out for you? I, Sam Qinghuan, am the youngest professor at University A. With a PhD in computer science, I receive a national stipend and am recognized as a top-tier national talent. I am one of the 10 outstanding youths of Jing City, with a future full of limitless potential. What makes you think you have the right to ask for my help? Are you even worthy? Jiuzhou's face paled. It seemed as if his already precarious self-esteem had been trampled by me a couple more times. With tears in his eyes, he pleaded helplessly to me. Suku, you know, I can be useful too. In my past life, I even became a professor. I'm not lacking in ability, and I've always been considerate toward you. As long as you help me divorce Su Shiryue, I promise I'll treat you well for the rest of my life. We'll be just like before, supporting each other and growing old together. Slap. Jiuzhou's face was violently slapped to the side by me. I still felt it wasn't enough. Slap, another blow, and Jiuzhou's mouth was bleeding from my strike. I shook my numb wrist. Disgusting. Get out, otherwise, with just one phone call from me, you'll be expelled immediately. Jiuzhou looked at me deeply. Suko, if you don't want me, that's fine. Are you going to abandon the Su family, your own biological parents? He left after throwing those two sentences at me. I knew that choosing to be honest with Jiuzhou meant taking risks, but in this life, I will never choose to sit back and wait for things to happen. I stood up and headed straight for the girls' dormitory. Hello, I'm looking for Su Shiryue. I was not the only one whose life had been tampered with. Sitting face to face with Su Shiryue felt like a lifetime had passed. She has a very straightforward personality, just like her mother. Teacher Song, are you here to persuade me to be nicer to Jiuzhou? I think this is a family matter. If it really isn't suitable, he can file for divorce, rather than. I smiled and interrupted. No, I just think you're still being too good to him. Su Shiryue looked slightly surprised. It seemed she hadn't expected me to say that. Is it because he offended you before? Actually, when I first saw you, teacher, I was also in a daze. You look very much like my mother. If I hadn't heard that you grew up in Jing City, I would have thought you were her biological daughter. It's just a pity she passed away. Otherwise, if you saw her, you would definitely feel like old friends at first sight. I looked up. I didn't expect Su Shiryue to be testing me as well. We're all clever people. It seems there's no need for me to beat around the bush. June brings frequent rainy spells, and in past years, my mother's knees often suffered From rheumatism, when brewing the medicine, you need to add an extra spoonful of honey. She has a childlike temper and always complains that the medicine is too bitter. She always said that the 5-leaf bark is the most bitter. The water by Sushiriwa's hand was suddenly knocked over, her eyes gradually filled with tears. With a trembling voice, she looked at me and said, "You." I raised my hand to wipe away her tears, my gaze falling on her shoulder. "The plum blossom birthmark here is very similar to your mother's, Joey." It was a heart-to-heart talk that lasted all night. It felt as if fate had forcibly set the chaotic course of life back on track. In the early morning, I took half a day off from school. I went back home to visit my grandfather. Grandpa is playing chess with old man Joe, two terrible chess players. Coming together, they make 3 moves, then take back 4. It's enough to make one laugh without a sound. Even so, Grandpa still couldn't beat old man Joe. He was even mocked by the other for being uncultured and told to read more books. Grandpa was furious, seeing me arrive. He casually pushed the chessboard aside and said with a sly grin, "I'm done playing. I'm done playing. My granddaughter is back. I need to go home and cook." "Chinghuan, why are you back on a Wednesday? Did you miss Grandpa's braised pork?" After greeting Grandpa Joe, I pulled my grandpa to sit down. Seeing me hesitate, Grandfather knew in his heart that I had something important to say. "Grandfather, do you still remember that small southern town where you found me?" Grandfather understood my meaning right away. He rubbed his hands together somewhat awkwardly, forcing a smile to comfort me. "I understand. Chinghuan must be missing home. That's fine too. Grandpa is getting old. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep you company for much longer. It's good that you're going back to look. If there are still people in your hometown, you'll have someone to protect you in the future." Grandpa's eyes reddened as he finished speaking. He hurriedly stood up, trying to cover his emotions as he walked toward the kitchen. "Let's not talk about this anymore. Grandpa will make braised pork for Chinghuan." Watching the stubborn back of the little old man, I didn't speak. Silently, I pressed my face against his back. Tears soaked his clothes, clinging to his skin. Grandpa's hand paused while cutting the meat. He smiled and comforted me, saying, "Silly girl, why are you crying? Grandpa just feels sorry for you. When I first picked you up, you were as thin as a kitten. You didn't even make a sound when you cried. In the blink of an eye, you've grown so big." I didn't let the old man continue to grieve. I started from the beginning, explaining how I had been swapped. The old man listened intently. Emotions come quickly and fade just as fast. I thought I was going back to my hometown to reunite with family. I never expected I would come to him for help, both delighted and annoyed. The cleaver came down with a solid thud, leaving a crack in the cutting board. After all these years in Beijing, I wonder who's still left in that small town. We need to investigate this. We should find someone local, right? I remember old Joe has a younger son in Yunnan. Grandpa will go find him right away. As soon as the words were spoken, Grandpa grabbed me and stormed over, brandishing a kitchen knife. The guard in Grandpa Joe's room was quite startled. Old Joe, Chinghuan has been bullied. Are you going to do something about it or not?" Grandpa Joe is also a man of strong character. He pulled out the electric baton from the guard's waist, ready to fight. "Of course I'll handle it." "Damn right, I'll handle it. Which little bastard from the compound is it?" Grandpa Joe's sudden outburst completely shattered the somber atmosphere. It left me torn between laughter and tears. I quickly stopped him together with Grandpa. I explained the whole situation clearly. "The rest is fine. It's just that so many years have passed. I wonder if the evidence can still be found." Grandpa Joe acted quickly and made a call to Joe Iran over there. "Iran, I'm counting on you for this matter." The young man on the other end flashed a bright, cheerful smile. "It's rare to hear you call me brother. Don't worry. I promise I'll handle it for you." Joe Iran is a man of his word. With his assurance, my heart immediately settled. I spent the rest of the afternoon with Grandpa before returning to school. Sushiriwa waited for me in the office for a while. As soon as I arrived, Sushiriwa stood up and nodded toward me. "Our previous thoughts were correct. Jiyuzhou is indeed using this matter to threaten me. Jiyuzhou is not a good person. Since I admit that I am Suko, but I definitely want to use this to turn the tables and threaten Sushiriwa." Sure enough, this morning, Jiyuzhou confessed everything to Sushiriwa. He admitted that he had switched the two of us back then. "Whether you are the daughter of the Su family or not, I will always be the Su family's son-in-law. Just prove that you're not, then you have no right to manage or use the Su family's assets. The only remaining heir would be me, the son-in-law." Jiyuzhou was smug and triumphant. He seemed certain that Sushiriwa could never let go of the Su family's wealth. He sneered and threatened, "Let's get a divorce. Give me half of the Su family's assets, and I'll take this secret to my grave. Besides, don't you want to know who your biological mother is?" Fortunately, Sushiriwa wasn't a fool either. She feigned surprise and anger. "He's been dead for so many years, and you say he's not?" Just like that, Jiyuzhou became even more smug and carried away. Couldn't wait to reveal their trump card. Back when Su's mother gave birth, she specifically spent a fortune to preserve the umbilical cord blood. "You're still young, you don't understand. But I know, nowadays, hospitals have a method called DNA Testing, whether it's your own child or not. One test will tell. My eyes lit up. This was just the opportunity one needed. I thought I'd have Iran look into the cord blood later. Sushiriwa pulled out 2 more contracts. She said they were drafted by Jiyuzhou, with the aim of dividing up the Su family's assets. He wants me to think it over by tomorrow night and give him the money. The academy has already sent a 3rd notice demanding tuition payment. If he doesn't pay up soon, he'll be forced to drop out. I nodded thoughtfully, leaning close to Sushiriwa's ear. I whispered something. She looked up. We exchanged a knowing smile. For the entire next day, Sushiriwa seemed to vanish into thin air. Originally, Jiyuzhou had been confident of victory, convinced that Sushiriwa would definitely sign that contract, yet time ticked by second, while Jiyuzhou was still thinking about when Sushiriwa would come to him on her own. He planned to thoroughly mock her. I never expected the dorm supervisor collecting the payment would come right to the door. Sushiriwa still hadn't come to find him. Jiyuzhou had no other choice. He could only leave all his belongings with the dorm supervisor as collateral, begging shamelessly for another 2 hours extension, then rushing over to the girls' dormitory building, asking someone to help call Sushiriwa down, even if it's just her roommate, Shiriwa. She went out early in the morning. He still hasn't come back yet. Jiyuzhou's mind went completely blank. He never expected that Sushiriwa would pull a disappearing act on him. The dormitory closes at 10:30. If he can't pay the tuition by then, both the items and the person will be cleared out together. Then it's all over. Jiyuzhou is as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. After thinking it over and over, it turns out they could only think of me. Jiyuzhou rushed into my office in a hurry. Seeing that I was still there, he let out a huge sigh of relief. Lend me 3,000 yuan. I'll pay you back as soon as Sushiriwa returns. I didn't even acknowledge him, just locked the drawer. I only make about 700 a month, and you're asking for 3,000 in one go. How are you going to pay it back? Get out. Don't disturb me while I'm writing my research report. Jiyuzhou was unwilling and even knelt down to me in desperation. I'm begging you. This money is really important to me. Whether I can become a professor and change my fate depends entirely on this one chance. I didn't speak, just silently played with the key on the table. It made a jingling sound. Listening carefully, there were also 2 crisp clinks mixed in. It made Jiyuzhou's eyes gleam with envy. I promise I'll pay you back double in the future. I continued to ignore him, my face cold as I humiliated him. Jiyuzhou, didn't you say you'd rather be a murderer for the rest of your life than lose your self-respect? And where is that self-respect now? Kneeling on the ground, begging me for 3,000 yuan. TSK, how pitiful. Back then, the Su family bought you for 300, now you're asking for 3,000 just like that. You've set your price quite high. Jiyuzhou was left thoroughly embarrassed by my words, but at this point, he had no choice but to bow his head to me. I know you hold resentment in your heart. What happened back then was my fault. I apologize to you. I shouldn't have stolen you away and let Joey take over your life. But you're not living poorly now. I heard you were adopted by an old general. Your circumstances are countless times better than the Su family's. You should be thanking me, otherwise, you wouldn't have let Sushiriwa keep your identity. Jiyuzhou's words left me dizzy with anger. He was completely unaware how despicable an act it is to steal and swap babies. In his shallow understanding, it seemed that attaching oneself to someone wealthier was a gain. I don't want to say much to such a person. I got up and left. You can kneel for as long as you like. I won't lend you this money, but the key is still on my desk, like a tempting bait on a fishhook, just waiting for the greedy fish to bite. Someone, catch the thief. Click, the sound of a film camera echoed from behind Jiyuzhou. He never would have imagined, hidden in the warehouse inside the office was Sushiriwa. Upon hearing Sushiriwa's shout, after lingering at the entrance of the security room for a while, I grabbed the security guard and rushed upstairs. Sure enough, the drawer had been opened by Jiyuzhou. Teacher Song, I was testing the photography club's camera in the warehouse as you instructed. I never expected to catch Jiyuzhou stealing money. I managed to snap a photo. Look, this is the evidence. Caught red-handed. Jiyuzhou stared at the two of us, utterly dumbfounded. When did you two conspire together? Sushiriwa, have you lost your mind? Aren't you afraid I'll reveal the truth? Even if I don't come out of this well, do you think you'll get to gloat at most? You can just arrest me. Once I'm out, I'll still expose your identity as a fake heiress. Sushiriwa raised an eyebrow, looking completely indifferent. Do you think I care? The true heiress of the Su family is Teacher Song. Give it up. No matter how much you struggle, this money will never end up in your hands. Jiyuzhou was still struggling in the security guard's grip, stubbornly retorting, who says it's true just because you say so? Su's mother and father have been dead for so many years. What evidence is there? I am the only confirmed son-in-law of the Su family, the sole heir. Right now, I only feel that Ji Yuzhou is terrifyingly insane. Tilting my head, I ask him with an innocent yet cruel tone, can't we verify the ND cord blood? It was your own idea. Ji Yuzhou suddenly looked up at me, then turned to Su Shiryue. Su Shiryue, you're insane. You told her everything. The Su family is so wealthy. And you're just giving it all up. Song Qinghuan is already living quite comfortably, yet you're still rushing to hand her money. You fool, idiot, all these years I've put up with you, and you're just, unexpectedly. Su Shiryue gave Ji Yuzhou a strange smile. You've endured me all these years, but I've endured you just the same. Do you really think Su's father and mother are fools? Can't they tell if their daughter looks like them or not? Besides, my mother was their neighbor. If it weren't for the fact that you were a few years older than me and a man who could hold off those greedy relatives outside the Su family for me back then, plus, Su's father and mother advised me to wait before taking action. I wanted to kill you right then and there. Ji Yuzhou was stunned. Only then did it dawn on him belatedly, and he looked toward Su Shiryue. I always said, you weren't like this in your past life. You were cheerful, positive, independent, and confident. You had such a good personality and understood me so well. But why, after I secretly switched you, the more you grew up, the worse you treated me. You hit me, scolded me, belittled me, made me live without dignity or self-respect. I wish I had never switched you in the first place. I regret it so much. I truly regret it so much. Ji Yuzhou had no chance to speak again. The large team that arrived from the security room dragged him out and escorted him directly to the police station until this farce finally settled into calm. Only then did I turn my gaze to Su Shiryue. My voice trembled as I spoke. Have my parents already found out? But I'd rather they didn't know. My father was already seriously ill when I was born. I was practically the emotional pillar for my parents, and I could hardly imagine the despair my mother would feel upon learning this. Su Shiryue held me in her arms and patted my back. What mother wouldn't recognize her own child? She suspected Ji Yuzhou, but because he was young and there was no solid evidence, and with mother getting older and her health declining after father passed away, she thought Ji Yuzhou was cunning enough to protect the family wealth for me while I was still young. But Ji Yuzhou is a disobedient, vicious dog. Mother said I must whip him from time to time so he knows his place. I cried even harder. I only felt my heart ache to the point of numbness. I would rather my mother never knew, living in a beautiful illusion, than to die with regret right before death. Su Shiryue gently stroked my hair. She smiled and comforted me. You really do resemble your mother. She would be so happy if she knew you were still alive, even after drinking the bitter Chinese medicine with 5-leaf ginseng. I smiled and said it wasn't bitter. We held each other tightly, feeling each other's heartbeat. I forced a smile. Shiryue, no, Joey, thank goodness you're here. After Ji Yuzhou was detained, Zhou Yiren also received good news. The hospital indeed found the cord blood stored back then, with the DNA verification completed. I can directly sue Ji Yuzhou for abandonment and intentional harm, and the key evidence is Ji Yuzhou's confession when he knelt before me. Those two crisp sounds that were drowned out by the jingling of the keys. It was the sound of Su Shiryue pressing the button to start the tape recorder in the warehouse. Ji Yuzhou had no way to refute it. With multiple charges combined, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for the rest of his life. The self-respect he sought would be forever confined within prison walls, subjected to contempt. Zhou Yiren gently squeezed my thin shoulder, comforting me. Don't worry, I'll arrange everything inside the prison. In a corner where no one paid attention, Ji Yuzhou was bullied, beaten, humiliated, and lost all dignity, even suffering from incontinence. He also missed the days of being admired by thousands in his previous life. He had a wife, fame, and wealth, everything but contentment. In the second month of his imprisonment, he fantasized about being a professor and was transferred to a psychiatric hospital for care. In the third month, Ji Yuzhou took his own life, crazy to the point of terror. With no last words, when Zhou Yiren told me this news, I just nodded calmly. No more ripples. Planning to take advantage of the winter break to return to the small town. After all these years apart, it's time to properly kowtow a few times to my father and mother, and light a few sticks of incense for them. Su Shiryue changed her name back to Joey. On that year's New Year's Eve, we all found our way home. For years passed in a flash, and Zhaoi graduated. Zhaoi gave me the Su family's assets and went off to make his own way in the world. He signed with a foreign company to work, saying it was to gain experience. He would wait until he had earned enough money in the future to start my own foreign trade company. At my wedding with Zhou Yiren, Grandpa stood in as my family, and Zhaoi served as my bridesmaid. They smiled through tears as they sent me off to be married. Just before the event ended, Zhaoi pulled me aside to whisper, Zhou Yiren is a reliable person, but even without Zhou Yiren by your side, I believe you still have the courage and ability to face life on your own. If anything comes up, send me a fax or give me a call. Nowadays, you don't need an introduction letter to fly. Just buy a ticket with money. No matter how far apart we are, I'll fly back to see you. I couldn't bear to part with her. I personally saw her off onto the plane. I'll keep the Sue family safe for you. Take good care of yourself. I've heard that my mother, Widow Zhao, is a well-known businesswoman in the surrounding villages. I can't let her down. I have to earn my own fortune. We held each other tightly. I can't bear to say goodbye. Xiaosong, next time we meet, remember to call me President Zhao. Then you'll have to call me Engineer Zhao. She wiped away her tears, turning his back. He waved his hand, his figure walking away with ease. In this lifetime, we will have no regrets. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see Reborn. At the age of 6, the first thing I did was gather the whole village to catch my dad and his lover in the act. At that moment, the excitement of the entire village was palpable. I was reborn, returning to the year I was 6. I saw with my own eyes Dad hugging Aunt Freya from next door and slipping into the inner room. It was New Year's Eve in 1988, at the wedding banquet of the village chief's son. Mom and Grandma had gone to help out. I quickly ran to the village chief's house. The ceremony is underway, and the entire village is present. I ran up to the podium in a hurry, snatched the microphone from the host's hand, and cried out loudly, "Please, someone save Aunt Freya. My dad took off her pants and is hitting her." After a brief moment of shock, the host quickly stepped forward to grab the microphone back from me. I refused to let go. Screaming hoarsely, "Go save her, hurry," Aunt Freya kept begging for mercy, but my dad wouldn't stop. He kept hitting her. At that moment, the entire village's excitement was palpable. The villagers all rushed to my house in unison. My grandmother shouted at the top of her lungs, "Don't listen to the child's nonsense. There's nothing going on. Everyone hurry back." But those eager to see the commotion paid her no mind. Running faster than rabbits, the whole village swarmed into my family's courtyard in a chaotic rush. A few young bachelors from the village kicked open the inner room door of my house in just a few moves. By the time I squeezed through the adults' legs to get inside, all I saw were my father and Freya's pale, naked bodies. My father frantically pulled up his pants, while Freya grabbed a quilt to clumsily cover herself. My mother pushed through the crowd, grabbed Freya by the hair, and dragged her into the yard. My mother was known far and wide as the most virtuous wife in the neighborhood, and in all the years since her marriage, she had never once raised her voice at anyone, but now she seemed to have gone mad, slapping Freya 8 times in a row until the girl's fair face swelled up. My father, who usually doted on Freya as his precious darling, now cowered like a turtle in the inner room, too afraid to come out. Freya's parents' house is right next to mine. Her mother, feeling sorry for her daughter, rushed up to stop my mom. My mom didn't go easy on her, impartial as ever, and gave her a few slaps too. At this point, the village chief and his wife, who is the village women's director, couldn't just stand by. They quickly stepped in to calm my mom down, and so, my dad and Freya, that shameless pair, were tied up with their arms behind their backs, kneeling in the yard with their clothes in disarray. My mother's face turned ashen as she held me tightly, glaring at them with hatred. My grandmother, who had always been fiercely protective of her son, wanted to rush forward to shield my father but was firmly restrained by the village chief's wife. In stark contrast to my mother, my grandmother was notorious far and wide as a shrew, having offended many people in her daily life, especially the elderly women from the neighboring households, who would never miss this chance to humiliate my grandmother. They chattered away, gossiping. "Still protecting your own son after what he's done? What were you thinking? Like father, like son, I suppose." This really does my grandma a bit of injustice. She never liked Freya, thinking her lazy and restless. My grandmother only found out about the affair between my dad and Freya today. She pointed at Freya and shouted, "It must be this slut who seduced my son. Village chief, beat this tramp to death." Hearing this, Freya's mother wouldn't stand for it. Ignoring their usual revolutionary camaraderie of gossiping, she immediately pushed my grandmother to the ground and cursed, "Your son forced my daughter, and we're going to sue him. I wouldn't even be satisfied if he got the death penalty." My grandmother and Freya's mother were wrestling, pulling hair, slapping faces. It was a full-on brawl by now. My mother had calmed down. She frowned coldly, watching them in silence, but her arms around me were tight, as if she feared losing me the moment she let go. Suddenly, a bold guess flashed through my mind, one that sent my blood boiling. The village chief called a few strong laborers to tie up my father and take him to his house, locking him in the woodshed. Freya was taken by the women's director to the village committee for custody. During the New Year celebrations, we couldn't let such an incident ruin everyone's festive mood. The onlookers reluctantly left, glancing back every few steps. This home will never know peace again from now on. That night, my mother held me in her arms, tears streaming down her face, unable to get enough of looking at me. After a long silence, I finally spoke up, "Mom, do you still remember the red butterfly garment Factory in S City. As soon as I finished speaking, my mother widened her eyes in disbelief and stared at me. I couldn't hold back any longer and threw myself into her arms, crying as I said, "Mom, just like you, I've also been reborn." Sure enough, just as I had suspected, my mother, like me, had been reborn today. When she came to, she was exhausted and dozing off in the village chief's kitchen. Before she could figure out what was happening, I had already run to fetch someone to catch them in the act. That's why my mother, breaking her usual demeanor, gave Freya and her mother a fierce scolding like a shrew. That night, my mother and I went over the events of our past lives again. Finally, a series of plans were formulated. In summary, it's about settling scores and seeking revenge where it's due. On the morning of the first day of the Lunar New Year, my mom and I slept in luxuriously. In the past, it was always my mom who got up early to cook, clean the yard, and then respectfully invited Grandma out for breakfast. On the days when my mother went to work in town, my grandmother would make me, just 6 years old, cook porridge and steam buns. She herself would sleep until the sun was high in the sky, then wait to be served like an empress dowager. Such good days have vanished since yesterday. Sure enough, shortly after 7 in the morning, my grandmother started banging on my and my mother's door. Lazy woman. Still not up to cook, trying to starve me to death. We kept our heads under the covers, ignoring her. Grandma, in her fiery temper, actually grabbed a sledgehammer and smashed the door open in no time, barging in and yanking off our blankets. Mom and I had only fallen asleep near dawn and were in deep, sweet slumber, being rudely awakened. We were fuming with anger. My mother pushed my grandmother aside and scolded, "Make your own food if you want to eat, otherwise, go hungry." Grandmother, who had been used to bossing my mother around, couldn't stand being scolded even once. She sat in the yard, crying and wiping her nose, cursing with foul language. "That wasteful little slut gave birth to a money-losing girl and mistreats me. My life is so bitter. Married a daughter-in-law who's not even human, can't even bear a son. Old man, I can't go on living. I'm coming to find you now." Neither my mom nor I paid her any attention and went about our own business washing up. Then my mom made me a delicious egg pancake. Holding the pancake, I squatted excitedly by the door, eating while calling the neighbors to come watch my grandma's solo tantrum performance. Furious and humiliated, my grandma rushed up to me and slapped the egg pancake out of my hand. "You worthless money loser, you jinx. Got it, the stage is mine. Time for me to take the lead. Only magic can defeat magic." I gathered all my strength and knocked Grandma over with a headbutt, then burst into loud sobs. "I get up before dawn every day to cook, just because I didn't get up today. You hit me. I'm only 6 years old. You keep calling me a money loser, but you're a woman too, so you're a money loser as well. I have both parents alive. How am I a jinx? Your parents are dead. Even my grandpa is dead. You're the real jinx." Hearing such words from a child barely 6 years old was utterly shocking. The crowd around burst into laughter, clicking their tongues in admiration, praising me for being clever and extraordinary. My grandma was left speechless by my retort. Seizing the opportunity, I added fuel to the fire, pretending to be worried as I said, "Dad hit Freya yesterday, and he's still locked up at the village chief's house." "Grandma, how can you still have the heart to eat?" The whole village had been eagerly waiting to see the spectacle of my dad and Freya, the so-called illicit lovers, and now their interest was piqued even more. They swarmed over and practically carried my grandma off to the village committee. I followed behind my mom, trotting along eagerly. In 1988, when social customs were still conservative, my dad and Freya happened to be caught in the crosshairs. According to the law, the two of them were to be sentenced for hooliganism, locked up overnight, cold, hungry, scared, and exhausted. They had no energy left to care about each other and quickly turned on one another, engaging in a dog-eat-dog battle. My dad tried to justify himself by saying Freya seduced him, and that nothing really happened between them, they just kissed. Freya, on the other hand, screamed at the top of her lungs, accusing my dad of being driven by lust and trying to force himself on her. As a vulnerable woman, she couldn't resist and was clearly the victim. I sneered inwardly. Freya and my dad were childhood sweethearts. They were originally planning to get married, but before the wedding, my grandma consulted a fortune teller who claimed Freya would bring misfortune to her husband. My grandma adamantly opposed the marriage. Later, my father married my mother, a girl from another village, while Freya also married far away to a different village. At the end of last year, just as the fortune teller had predicted, Freya's husband passed away. Still young and unwilling to remain a widow, she returned to her parents' home and rekindled her old flame with my father, like drywood meeting a blazing fire. Their affair was not the first time my dad contracted a construction site, working as a small subcontractor. My mom was busy washing clothes and cooking for the workers on the site, completely unaware of My dad's occasional affairs. When he came home, my grandma was preoccupied with playing cards and didn't notice either at this moment. If they had the courage to own up to their actions, I might actually admire them a bit. Now I feel that scumbags and shameless women are truly disgusting. Susan, what do you think we should do about this? The village chief took a deep drag of his cigarette and asked my mother. My mother's family was from another village. The village chief was her distant uncle and also served as the matchmaker between my father and mother. Now that such a thing has happened, even the village chief feels embarrassed seeing this. My grandmother, without waiting for my mother to speak, quickly tried to mediate. Family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. Susan, it was that wretched girl who seduced the child's father. He's innocent, so please forgive him. Exactly, for the sake of the child, just let it go. The village chief's wife also chimed in to persuade, mentioning that the village was currently participating in the town's model village selection, and at this critical moment, nothing scandalous should happen. With wide, innocent eyes, I said, yes, think of the children. My mother looked at me in surprise, completely baffled by what I was up to. I smiled innocently. Aunt Freya has a little baby in her belly. It's a baby brother. The whole village erupted in uproar. Grandma rushed over to cover my mouth, trying to stop me from speaking nonsense, but I'm telling the truth. Freya is indeed pregnant, only 2 months along, and she hasn't even realized it herself. It was this child who plunged me into endless suffering in my previous life. The boy Freya gave birth to was diagnosed with Down syndrome shortly after his birth. The money my father earned as a contractor was all spent on his medical treatment, but it was just a drop in the bucket. Freya looked at my clever and quick-witted self, then at her dull and foolish son, and evil intentions arose in her heart. She contacted a human trafficker and secretly sold me when I was only 6 years old. My grandmother clearly noticed but did nothing to stop it. She needed money, a lot of money, to cure her precious grandson. The doctor from the village clinic was called over and immediately took Freya's pulse. The facts proved that what I said was true. Freya was over 2 months pregnant. My mother snatched me from my grandmother's arms and held me tightly. She said in a trembling voice, I won't forgive them. I want a divorce. All the money my parents earned from contracting projects over the years was handed over to my grandmother for safekeeping, but my mother was shrewd. She kept a small ledger, meticulously recording every penny. After 7 years of marriage, the couple's shared assets amounted to 12,000 yuan. The moment the ledger was revealed, the villagers were shocked. In those days, households with 10,000 yuan were still quite rare. Then, a woman whispered, no wonder Freya took a liking to Rose's dad. He's really loaded. Rose's mom is so foolish. With a man who can make so much money, how could she even think of divorce? Just make do and get by. The villagers now looked at my dad, no longer with pure disdain, but even with some envy and jealousy. Rose and I'll take 10,000 of the money. My mother laid down the divorce terms with unwavering determination. Everyone was in an uproar, deeming it unreasonable, and my grandmother was especially adamant in her refusal. Then I'll go to the town and report your son for bigamy. You can keep your money and die alone. Old woman, my mother clenched her teeth, refusing to back down even an inch. Seeing the situation at a stalemate, the village chief had no choice but to advise our family to calm down and give him an answer after the new year. When we got home, my mother threw all my father's clothes and belongings into the yard, officially separating from him. My father resented me for humiliating him in front of the whole village and hated my mother for insisting on divorcing him and making a scene. He grabbed a carrying pole and struck me hard with it, shouting that he would kill both me and my mother. But no, neither my mother nor I were the same pushovers who used to obey her every whim. Seeing me get hit, my mother's eyes turned red with rage. She grabbed an axe, turned around, and pinned my grandmother to the ground. My grandmother immediately let out a scream like a slaughtered pig. You damned adulterous bitch, what do you think you're doing? My mother kicked my grandmother hard. Shut up, you old hag. Then she brandished the axe in her hand at my father. If you dare lay a finger on Rose again, I'll take your life and your mother's. My father refused to believe in superstitions and, gripping the carrying pole tightly, lunged at my mother. Without hesitation, my mother swung the axe in her hand toward my grandmother. The sharp blade of the axe narrowly grazed my grandmother's cheek. Darkness filled my grandmother's vision as she collapsed, unconscious, as the saying goes. The reckless fear the desperate. My mother's near-frenzied state terrified my father and grandmother. After Grandma regained her composure, she gritted her teeth and said to my dad, fine, get divorced. Anyway, Freya's already pregnant, most likely with a boy. Just let Susan take that worthless burden and get out of here. After saying that, she glared fiercely at my mother and sneered, Susan, with that worthless burden and dead weight. No one will want you anymore, be careful, or you'll have no son to take care of you in your old age. I was practically laughing in anger. I walked up to my grandmother and whispered softly in her ear, "Grandma, not all boys can carry on the family line. For example, idiots, they can't." Hearing my words, Grandma was stunned at first, then began to curse at me loudly. I ignored her and instead turned to help my mother pack her belongings, let her have her moment of verbal satisfaction. Her days of crying are yet to come. My dad and mom got their divorce certificate, and he even gave my mom 10,000 yuan. My mom and I packed our bags and left the house unexpectedly. We ran into my grandma's family at the village entrance. My heart skipped a beat. In her past life, my mother suffered terribly because of this patriarchal family. After my parents divorced, my grandmother tricked my mother into returning home to fund my uncle's house construction. They married her off to a wealthy but disabled old man and even helped him imprison her. They made my mother endure 10 years of living hell. Sure enough, Uncle's eyes were darting around as he said to my mom in a sarcastic tone, "Susan, I heard you got a lot of money from the divorce. What does a woman like you need so much money for? Hurry up and hand it all over to me." My mom clutched her wallet tightly and coldly replied to Uncle, "Dream on, Grandma." Seeing my mom wouldn't listen, directly reached out to snatch the bag. A crowd had gathered at the village entrance to watch the commotion. After all, Grandma was the elder, so most people still sided with them. Seeing the money in my hand was about to be taken, I quickly grabbed Grandma's arm and said with a smile, "This money was meant for my mom to start a business. Once we make a profit, we'll give it all to you." "Okay." Grandma scoffed at my mom and said, "If anyone should start a business, it should be your brother. You're just a woman. Hurry back to the village with me and find a wealthy man to marry while you're still young." Sure enough, in this life, they still intend to sell Mom. Seeing Mom's face turn deathly pale, my heart ached, but I still said to Grandma, "Starting a business is very hard, and Uncle has always been in poor health. He can't endure such hardship. My mom has connections in the city and can secure construction projects, making over 100,000 a year without any trouble. When the time comes, I'll bring all of you to the city too. Enjoy a good life, okay?" I squeezed my mom's hand, signaling her to calm down. My mom took a deep breath and said through gritted teeth to Grandma, "Don't worry, once I have money, I'll bring all of you to the city and take care of you properly." After our repeated reassurances, we finally managed to leave Grandma's family behind. Back in the city, we rented a small house. My mother had always been known for her diligence and warmth when working in the city, so, as soon as she returned this time, people actively sought her out for projects. My mom formed a construction crew. She specialized in snatching my dad's business, and she succeeded every time. My dad was so angry he gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. A year later, the construction crew expanded and grew into a real estate company, but things were tough for my dad. Rumor had it he was barely keeping his business afloat. That day after school, my dad was waiting at the school gate. When he saw me come out, he came over with a grin and tried to pull me along. "Rose, I bought you lots of things. Come home with Dad now." I gave him a cold smile and glanced at him. "What, not calling me a money waster anymore?" My dad awkwardly replied, "Rose, your grandma is old. Sometimes she says things that aren't pleasant to hear. Lately, we've been thinking about you and your mom a lot. We're still family after all. Help your dad persuade your mom to remarry me." Strangely enough, after my dad divorced my mom, he didn't immediately marry Freya like he did in my previous life. Perhaps the scene of catching them in the act that I orchestrated created a rift between them. Although Freya and her family kept making a fuss, and she even gave birth to a son, my dad just wouldn't agree to marry her. I never expected that my dad actually harbored the idea of remarrying my mom. I have no idea where he got the nerve. My dad kept pulling me aside, rambling on and brainwashing me. "Rose, the original parents are always the best. Your mom is making money now, so there must be a lot of people eyeing her. If she marries someone else in the future and has another son, there won't be any place for you in the family. You still have to rely on me, rely on your sister." Before I could speak, a man's voice angrily scolded my dad. My little uncle, the village bully who had beaten everyone in the village, appeared. He kicked my dad like a soccer ball, sending him fleeing in panic and disgrace. "Rose, don't listen to that scumbag father of yours. A mother's brother is as important as a father. You and your mom will still need me to back you up in the future. Little uncle has a small favor to ask your mom. Can you put in a good word for me?" In my mom's office, little uncle explained his small favor. He has a girlfriend and wants to get married. The other side is asking for a 30,000 yuan bride price. My mother agreed without hesitation, saying she would gather the money and give it to him in a few days. My Little uncle left in high spirits. Over the past year or so, my mother has been giving quite a bit of financial support to her family. She frequently bought nice things and tipped them back to the village, the latest model of mobile phone, the most fashionable leather jacket, and a cool motorcycle, but there's only one of each item. The villagers praised my mother endlessly and envied my grandmother for her good fortune, but my mother knew that life at Grandma's house wasn't going smoothly because Grandma was biased. All the good things she gave to the eldest uncle, while the youngest uncle got nothing, and had long been full of complaints, harboring resentment. 2 months ago, my mom bought Grandma a large 3-bedroom apartment, registered under Grandma's name. Grandma has been busy these days trying to transfer the house to my eldest uncle. At this point, just adding fuel to the fire could escalate the conflict to its peak. Sure enough, 3 days later, my youngest uncle came rushing to my mom in a panic. "Sis, how's the money coming along? If you don't give it to me soon, my relationship is going to fall through," my mother exclaimed in surprise. "Didn't our mom give you the money? I gave her 100,000 yuan a long time ago. She said she'd give you 30,000 and use the remaining 70,000 to buy our brother a car." At this point, my mother paused, choked up for a moment, and said thoughtfully, "I've seen our brother's car, and it seems to be worth exactly 100,000. Could it be my uncle's?" face turned ashen, and without another word, he rushed out. In the evening, the police called my mother. I was shocked when my mom and I arrived at Grandma's house. The floor was covered in blood. Grandma was slumped on the sofa, already unconscious. It turned out that after my youngest uncle came back in the afternoon, he had gone completely mad. He accused his grandmother of favoritism, saying all the good things were only given to his eldest uncle. Not only did he get no share of the house, but even the betrothal money meant for his wedding was used to buy a car for his eldest uncle. It is not the lack but the inequality that causes discontent. One incident after another finally overwhelmed his youngest uncle's reason. He hacked his elder uncle more than 10 times with a kitchen knife, according to the police. In the end, only a thin layer of skin was left connecting the elder uncle's head to his neck. A life for a life. The younger uncle was sentenced to death, and their grandmother suffered a stroke from the shock, leaving her paralyzed. Throughout the entire process, my mother remained eerily calm. After handling all the affairs, she hired a woman from the village who had always been on bad terms with Grandma as a nanny. "Take good care of the old lady, make sure she doesn't die." My mother coldly left these words behind and walked away without looking back. "This nanny will definitely take good care of Grandma. In my past life, Grandma helped that old man imprison my mother." My mother begged her, but she just said, "You have food and drink, what more could you want?" In this life, the house where her 2 sons killed each other became her prison. With food and drink, and a nanny who abused her day after day, she should be quite content, shouldn't she? What a perfect ending this is. When something happened at my grandmother's house, my dad got even more excited. He thought that without my mother's family, we mother and daughter would have to rely on him. So he kept harassing me all day, jumping around like a monkey. That day, my mom took me to a banquet hosted by the city's real estate companies. I was wearing a pretty little dress, eating my small cake sweetly and adorably, but I was almost knocked over by a woman. She rushed into the crowd in a hurry, grabbed a man, and said in panic, "Honey, our eldest child is seriously ill. It's very dangerous. The doctor has issued a critical condition notice." I took a closer look. What a coincidence. Familiar faces. Isn't that my dad and Freya? My dad's face darkened as he scolded in a low voice, "What kind of occasion is this for you to make a scene? Get out of here." After saying that, he dragged Freya out like a dead dog. Freya clung desperately to the table leg, tears and snot streaming down her face as she wailed, "You heartless man, seeing our son is sick, you just want to abandon your wife and child. Good bosses, judge for yourselves, give justice to us mother and child." From the moment Freya's son Tom was born, he wasn't quite normal. Freya took him everywhere for medical treatment, spending all the money my father had given her. A few days ago, a major hospital officially diagnosed Tom with Down syndrome, accompanied by complications such as epilepsy and heart disease. At first, my father and grandmother still held on to hope, but when they learned that this condition was incurable, they began to consider abandoning Tom. They hadn't cared for Freya and her son for many days. Today, Tom had an epileptic seizure, and the hospital issued a critical condition notice. That's why Freya came to the banquet in such a desperate state, causing a scene. But I knew my father wouldn't care about Tom anymore. He'd only feel relieved. When it comes to useless people or things, he's always been ruthless and merciless. Today's banquet was crucial for my father. Originally, thanks to his smooth talking, several bosses had considered collaborating with him. But now all those plans were ruined. My father was so furious that he gave Freya a hard slap across the face. A boss who had a feud with my father couldn't stand it anymore and sarcastically remarked, "Boss, after doing such a heartless and despicable thing that cuts off your descendants, aren't you afraid that no one will bury you when you die?" My father looked up and saw me at the front of the crowd, eagerly watching the commotion. He excitedly grabbed me and proudly announced to everyone, "Who says I'm without descendants? This is my daughter, Rose. She always ranks first in every exam and just participated in the National Children's Essay Competition." The boss glanced at me skeptically and asked, "Is your daughter really that amazing?" I replied with an innocent smile, "Yes, I'm amazing. At 6 years old, I could lead the whole village to catch my dad cheating." The banquet ended with my father's utter humiliation and Freya's hysterical sobbing. My father's face darkened as he asked me through gritted teeth, "Do you still consider me your father?" I shook my head with a cold laugh. "A year ago, when I caught you in the act, I already lost my father. 3 days later, on my way home from school, I was kidnapped. I was knocked unconscious by a drug towel and loaded into a van. My head ached terribly, and in the endless darkness, I had a distant dream. In my previous life, after Freya's son was diagnosed, Grandma sighed and lamented all day long. That day, Freya brought back a very kind and generous woman, Lucy. She brought me lots of candies and snacks, even a new set of clothes." I smiled as I accepted the gifts and thanked her sweetly. Lucy stroked my little face and praised me with satisfaction, saying, "She's a smart and pretty child. Only smart and pretty girls can fetch a good price." Lucy, a nationally notorious human trafficker, specializes in abducting children. Grandma actually noticed, but with a complicated expression, she glanced at Tom, gritted her teeth, and retreated into her room without further inquiry. Lucy gave Freya 3,000 yuan and then sold me for 6,000 yuan to a couple in City S. The couple needed a child bride to take care of their paralyzed son. In that household, I lived a life worse than death. I dropped out of middle school and went to work at the Red Butterfly Garment Factory, working 18 hours a day until I died from overwork on the assembly line. After my death, my mother, who had finally escaped from the countryside, learned of my passing. Heartbroken and hopeless, she drowned herself in the river. Yet my scumbag father and the family who bought me as a child bride profited from the tragedy, extorting a large sum of compensation from the Red Butterfly Garment Factory where I worked. Hell is empty, and the demons are all here. In this life, I ultimately couldn't escape the fate of being trafficked by my own family. When I woke up again, I was tied up in an abandoned factory. Beside me was a little girl, delicate and pretty, about 5 or 6 years old. She was terrified, trembling all over. "Don't be afraid," I whispered to comfort her. "Someone will come to save us." At that moment, the door opened, and several people walked in. No surprise, it was Lucy. Behind me followed 2 people I would never forget even if I turned to ashes, Bob and his wife, the couple who bought me in my previous life. Lucy pointed at me and said, "This one is clever and pretty, quite suitable to serve your son." But Daisy wasn't very satisfied. She remarked critically, "You're too old to be manageable." After saying that, she pointed at the little girl beside me and added, "Let's take this one instead. She's young, a few beatings will make her obedient." In my previous life, after being taken to Bob's house, I was first locked in a dark room and starved for 3 days, dying, and then forced to eat dog food in a dog cage. In the days that followed, when Bob Daisy was happy, I got scolded. When they were unhappy, I got beaten. Their disabled son was even more of a pervert, who loved to poke me with toothpicks and burn me with cigarette butts. After being tormented for half a year, I completely surrendered, lost the ability to resist, and obediently became their family's beast of burden. I glared at Bob Daisy with bloodshot eyes, yet I was helpless, watching as they dragged the little girl away. Lucy and her accomplices got $8,000 and bought a pile of delicious food. His accomplice leered at me and asked Lucy with a smirk, "What should we do with this little girl?" Lucy said coldly, "Sell her abroad. Get her on the boat tonight. A new club just opened there, specifically looking for young girls." I'm so excited. Never thought Lucy would make it big, expanding her business so widely, even reaching overseas. No, she won't be able to get away with it even if she dies 8 times over. The police arrived before Lucy and the others could finish their delicious food. The armed police, fully equipped, easily took down these troublemakers. One robber tried to take me hostage but was shot in the head. Brains splattered everywhere. Lucy was so terrified she wet herself. How disgusting. A female police officer disguised herself as Lucy and went undercover on the human trafficker's ship. A cross-border human trafficking case was cracked. Girls from multiple countries were rescued. A police officer happily said to me, "Little hero, thanks to the locator on your watch, we were able to arrive so quickly after being reborn. I was always worried that the kidnapping from my previous life would happen again, so I asked my mom to buy me a watch with a tracking function from abroad, but I had no mind to accept their praise. I anxiously said, "Hurry, go to S City, there are more kidnapped children there." With my guidance, the police quickly found Bob's family, but there was no trace of the little girl at home. No, There must be something I missed. I tried hard to recall what had happened in this place in my previous life. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, yet no clue came to mind. Just as the police were about to call off the search in frustration, I noticed Bob's disabled son gripping his wheelchair nervously. The carpet beneath the wheelchair bore distinct marks from being twisted. A sudden realization flashed through my mind. In my previous life, whenever I disobeyed, this paralyzed demon would coldly threaten me. If you don't obey, I'll beat you to death and stuff you in the cellar. I pointed at the wheelchair and shouted, "That carpet is suspicious. There's a cellar underneath it." The police found the abducted little girl in the cellar. She was covered in wounds and on the verge of death. What was even more shocking was that 2 skeletal remains were also discovered in the cellar. Without exception, they were all young girls. When the police removed the bones from the cellar, the deranged cripple was still screaming wildly. They were just toys my parents bought for me, so what if I killed them? This family was unspeakably cruel. The filthiest trade in this world is human trafficking, in places where sunlight cannot reach. Twisted desires and needs fester. Buying and selling are equally guilty. No trade, no harm. The Bob family will ultimately pay with their lives. The police arrested my father. He confessed to the process of selling me. He realized the fact that I would never acknowledge him again. By selling me, he could get a large sum of money. Secondly, it would deal a heavy blow to my mother, leaving her devastated, and thus allow me to reclaim the business she had taken from me. The most outrageous part is that he believes himself to be my biological father, thinking that even if he sold me, he wouldn't face legal consequences. Ridiculous. My grandmother blocked the entrance to my home, kneeling and begging my mother and me not to hold my father legally accountable. I smiled and said to her, "Grandma, what do you have to worry about? You have a son and a grandson, so you're not short of people to take care of you in your old age and see you off. Even though one is a criminal and the other is an idiot, at least they're both males. You're truly blessed with great fortune. To kill a person is to destroy their spirit." Grandma stopped pleading with us and instead stood blocking the doorway, cursing. We ignored her, watching her cry herself hoarse and writhe in agony as if it were a monkey show. But she only lasted 3 days before she stopped coming. I thought she had given up, but I never expected that something had happened to her. After my dad was arrested, Freya came to my grandma's house demanding money for Tom's medical treatment. In the scuffle between them, Grandma fell down the stairs and died on the spot. Freya and Tom were left with nowhere to turn. In the end, their bodies were found in the moat, mother and child. Now, all the enemies from my mother's and my previous lives have met their deserved fate. The two of us sat on the rooftop, gazing at the starry sky, overwhelmed with emotions. Through 2 lifetimes, those who hurt us the most were actually our closest kin. Why? Is it simply because we are girls? No matter how outstanding we are, in their eyes, we will be reduced to mere appendages and tools of men. What's even more tragic is that among those who harm us, there are many women, whether it's the grandmothers who favor boys over girls, the Freya who steals husbands, or the Lucy who traffics people. Worldly customs, desires, and money have blinded their eyes and extinguished their conscience. How fortunate my mother and I are to have the chance to be reborn in this life. Yet in this world, there are still so many girls who cannot escape the harm inflicted by their birth families. Rose, I want to establish a foundation, under the starry sky. My mother's eyes sparkled brightly. Help those girls who have been insulted, abandoned, and persecuted. I tightly held my mother's hand. Let's work together. The Rose Foundation was established. Pay high attention to the phenomena of trafficking women and forced marriages in impoverished mountainous areas. Rescue those girls who are in dire straits. Hope primary schools have also been established to support girls from families that favor sons over daughters. Provide them with education and purchase sanitary products for them. Establish vocational high schools to equip them with professional skills. Set up factories to provide job opportunities, enabling them to be self-reliant, free from exploitation and oppression. They will always have the courage and confidence to face life with a smile. The events of our past lives have long faded from memory for both my mother and me, and we've gradually let go. In this lifetime, we have finally blossomed into a vibrant rose that brings hope to people. After hearing the second story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My daughter is a pathological liar. When she was little, she accidentally bumped her arm and claimed that her mother had pinched her, which made my mother-in-law furious with me. As she grew older, she often skipped classes and told her homeroom teacher that the home environment was too suffocating, that she had developed depression. Later, she started dating a delinquent at a young age. I followed her to the rooftop where the secret rendezvous took place, and during the altercation with the delinquent, I was pushed off the building. I died on the spot. My daughter's first reaction was to record a video, crying out, "Mom, why did you jump on your own?" When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year my daughter was a high school senior, when she threatened suicide too. Elope with the delinquent. I swiftly packed her belongings and said, "Go ahead, my daughter. Mom supports your freedom to love. If you don't agree to my demands, I'll spill 3 feet of blood today and make you collect my corpse." The moment I opened my eyes, I saw my daughter holding a kitchen knife to her own throat, screaming at me hysterically, but I knew she had no real intention of suicide. This was just her way of forcing my compliance and extorting greater concessions from me in my past life. I was so terrified I nearly lost my soul, almost kneeling to beg her not to do anything foolish. In the end, with tears in my eyes, I agreed to their relationship, to keep her from leaving home. I even promised to give her 20,000 yuan every month, but my husband and I combined only earned 15,000 yuan a month. To scrape together the 20,000, I practically lived at the office, working late into the night every day until everything I saw became a blur, yet she took our hard-earned money to support that hoodlum, even boasting proudly, "That old woman clearly has money, I just have to keep pressuring her until she coughs it all up." Thinking of this, I clenched my fists tightly and turned to walk out of the room. "You old hag, even if you call my dad, it won't do any good." My daughter thought she had won again. She slammed the kitchen knife onto the table with a loud clang, smashed a few teacups to vent her anger, and then followed me into the bedroom. "Even if you kneel and beg me, I won't." The remaining words abruptly ceased as she fully stepped inside the house. The next second, my daughter's voice suddenly rose an octave. "What are you doing?" Meeting her shocked gaze, I swiftly packed her suitcase and placed it in front of her. "Go ahead, my daughter. Mom supports your freedom to love. Of course you two should be together. After all, your good days will come after the pregnancy." My daughter never expected me to act this way. Her reddened eyes widened in disbelief when she didn't move. I pushed the suitcase forward again. "We should leave before it gets dark. I'll mail the rest of your things to you later." "You," the daughter pondered with her limited intellect, then sneered coldly as realization dawned. "Ha, just to stop me from killing myself. You'd even agree to me being with Jack." With an air of magnanimity, the daughter waved her hand dismissively. "Fine, I get that you're old and can't bear to lose me. I can stay, but from now on, you're not allowed to interfere with anything I do. Plus, you'll deposit 20,000 into my account every month, no questions asked on how I spend it." At this moment, I truly feel a deep sense of sorrow from the bottom of my heart. From the moment our daughter was born, we've treated her with the utmost care, as if she were too precious to even hold, but what we never expected was that she would start lying from a young age, constantly finding excuses to ask for money. Every time I took her to my mother's place, my mom would later find several bills missing from her wallet. Back then, my husband insisted on giving her a harsh beating to teach her a lesson, but I believed it was because we hadn't provided her with enough sense of security. Girls should be raised with abundance. All these years, I've done everything I could to give her the best. Whatever other children had, I made sure she had it too. In the end, I gave my life for her. And her first reaction was to film a video to fabricate evidence, then start a live stream to profit from it. "You're wrong," I sighed, shook my head, and patted her shoulder. "Mom is getting old. I can't control you anymore, and I don't want to. Starting today, whether you go to school or not, who you date, it doesn't matter. If you want to leave this home, just go. But 20,000 yuan is really too much. Mom can't afford it. You'd better go find someone else to be your mother." "I knew you were just saying that in anger. You wait and see. I'm not coming home tonight," the daughter shouted and slammed the door as she left. She thought I was just being stubborn with her. Not long after the daughter left, I also went out, trapped in the role of a mother for too long. I've been eating my daughter's leftovers, the food she doesn't like, for almost every meal. This evening, I finally treated myself to a steak paired with red wine. The taste of fresh Wagyu beef was amazing. No wonder my daughter always wants to eat it. The service at high-end restaurants is truly exceptional. Being taken care of feels entirely different from always being the one who takes care of others. After a satisfying meal, I even went to watch a movie, buying myself popcorn and ice cream. I almost forgot that years ago, I was also a young girl, once cherished and held dearly in the palms of my parents' hands. When I returned home, I happened to see my daughter standing downstairs talking to a group of neighbors from a distance. I only vaguely heard, "My dad is on a business trip, and my mom is home alone, so it's inevitable. If she doesn't care about me, then so be it. I've been like this since I was little. If I starve, I starve." Now she's gone out again, who knows with whom. The neighbors fanned themselves with palm leaf fans, gossiping incessantly. It suddenly dawned on me why the neighbors had always given me such cold looks over the years. It was probably because my daughter had been tirelessly slandering me behind my back. I had previously consulted a psychologist and learned that children in their early years might use lying and performative behaviors to gain attention. But I never expected that my daughter's habitual lying and unrestrained malice would only intensify as she grew older. My daughter saw me, snorted coldly, and walked away without looking back. I immediately began to explain, "My daughter just loves to lie. Everything she says is false. I just went out alone to have a meal," but no one responded, so I turned to greet the neighbors, hoping to ease the tension. "Aunties, out for some cool air, have you eaten yet?" Yet everyone merely grunted in response. I understand that Rome wasn't built in a day, and no amount of explanation now would help. Only time and facts can speak for themselves. I said no more and returned home, only to find the house in complete disarray. Almost everything breakable had been smashed, drawers were pulled open and ransacked. It looked as if the place had been looted. My daughter's large, scrawled words, filled with hatred, appeared on my bedsheet. "Damn old woman, won't give me money, ha, don't regret it when my boyfriend and I stay over tonight. She's the one willingly ruining her own life, not mine. Why should I regret anything?" The louder she screams now, the harder she'll get slapped in the face later. I sneered coldly, changed the bedsheets, and went back to sleep. The next day, as soon as I got home, I saw my daughter sitting in the living room with my best friend, Lily. Lily was a junior to me and my husband in college. Back then, she had pursued my husband unsuccessfully before later becoming close friends with me. She had been in a relationship once, but her partner cheated on her and was abusive, so she has remained single ever since. Ever since my daughter was born, she has frequently visited our home, bringing all kinds of snacks, dolls, and limited edition gaming consoles for my daughter. When my daughter was little, every time I tried to discipline her, she would call Lily, who would immediately come to our house and speak up for her. Later, as my daughter grew older, she started talking back to me, often saying, "You're always making a fuss, nagging nonstop every day. What bad luck to be your daughter. How could Dad have been so blind to choose you? You're old and mean. If only Aunt Lily were my mom. She's so pretty and generous, not stingy and petty like you all the time." How much these words pained me to hear. She didn't care, genuinely wishing Lily could be her mother. At the moment, my daughter leaned pitifully into Lily's arms, while Lily held her hand, continuously comforting her. From my perspective, the two of them looked more like mother and daughter. Hearing my movement, my daughter didn't even lift her head as she loudly exaggerated her accusations. "My mom locked me out yesterday, leaving me with nowhere to go all night. Only my boyfriend took me in. She didn't even give me food and said she wouldn't provide me with living expenses anymore. Poor bitch. Why have kids if you can't afford them? I was just bravely pursuing true love. What did I do wrong?" Lily tightened her arm around her shoulder. "You're not wrong. Your mom is way too harsh. What era is this? She's even meddling in her child's freedom to love. That's overstepping way too far. Woo-woo. Aunt Lily is the only one who truly cares about me. You treat me better than my own mom." Lily even suggested formally adopting her as a goddaughter on her coming-of-age ceremony day, and my daughter agreed with overwhelming joy. Hearing all this, I could only let out a cold laugh. In this world, besides the parents who gave birth to and raised you, can there really be strangers who are good to you for no reason? I pretended not to hear this and walked in with a smile. "My daughter, I know no matter what I say, you won't believe me, so I've decided to prove it with facts." After a pause, I said slowly, "Mom just went out to handle some business, and it was all for you. I've already talked with Jack's parents, and we've arranged your engagement. I won't take a single penny for the bride price. Once you two reach the legal age, you'll get married. Your coming-of-age ceremony is almost here. This time, Mom will organize a grand celebration for you and invite Jack over, so everyone can witness your happiness." The daughter's eyes widened, her face filled with shock and joy. She was so excited she couldn't speak, but what I didn't expect was that Lily suddenly trembled, her face turning extremely pale. Lily knew her daughter's temperament well and understood me too. Realizing we were both serious this time, facing my probing gaze, she opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end, not a single word came out. "Mom, this is the right thing to do. This is the you I know. I don't know what came over you earlier." My daughter raised her eyebrows, then pointed at Lily and said to me, "I want Aunt Lily to be my godmother, and you should arrange the godparents' ceremony together." My daughter always speaks in this domineering tone, expecting everything to go her way, but she doesn't know there's a word in this world called spoiling to ruin. The coming-of-age ceremony she believed to be utterly perfect would mark the beginning of all her misfortunes. I agreed with a smile each time, in high spirits. My daughter asked cheerfully, "So what do you plan to do about the dowry?" I patted her shoulder reassuringly. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're satisfied when the time comes." According to the timeline from my past life, by this time my daughter had already secretly tasted the forbidden fruit with Jack. Not long after, on her 18th birthday, she suddenly felt nauseous while eating and went to the hospital, where it was discovered that she was pregnant. At that time, I felt as if the sky had fallen and the earth had split open. I demanded that my daughter have an abortion and break up with Jack, but she said, "This is the fruit of my love with Jack, and I must give birth to it." She truly dropped out of school because of this, turned against me and my husband, and moved into Jack's home with sweet dreams. In the past life, it was precisely because of this that Jack reluctantly agreed to take responsibility under his parents' pressure. Isn't this child the best dowry for our daughter? At noon that day, as I was coming down from the office building, I unexpectedly saw my husband, who was supposed to be away on a business trip. He was still carrying his suitcase, clearly having just rushed back from a long journey. "What brings you here?" I walked up to him. My husband seemed in a bad mood. He handed me a steaming bag of candied chestnuts and spoke with a grim expression. "Fiona, how could you let our daughter get engaged to Jack just like that? Weren't you always against it? Don't you know what kind of person Jack is?" I didn't answer his question but instead asked first, "How did you know about these things?" Our daughter definitely wouldn't have told him, afraid he might object, so if my husband could know, someone must have gone out of their way to tell him. Sure enough, as soon as I finished speaking, Lily stepped up from the side. She sighed and said, "Fiona, I don't mean to criticize you, but what kind of mother would push her own child into a pit of fire? Letting the child have some fun dating is one thing, but how can you consider marriage with someone like this? Senior brother, you should talk to her too. What will people think if they find out? Isn't she ruining the child's life?" Lily tried to hold her husband's hand, but he avoided her touch first. Her husband came over to help me with my bag and said to Lily with his back turned, "This is our family's private matter. Thank you for letting me know. My wife and I will discuss the rest at home." Lily was indignantly accusing me when I was suddenly doused with cold water by my husband, her outstretched hand froze in midair, her eyes gradually darkening. Meanwhile, my husband had already draped his arm over my shoulder as usual, speaking to me gently. "I know our daughter has been tormenting you, and you made a poor decision in a moment of anger. I've been working very hard lately. My boss is about to promote me with a raise. Knowing you're a kind mother, don't worry about giving her living expenses anymore." He spoke in a coaxing tone, just like when we were first dating. "Be good. Let's talk about whatever's bothering you at home. Tell me who's been bullying you, and I'll teach them a harsh lesson." All the grievances I'd endured these days welled up inside me at my husband's words. My eyes stunned momentarily, and I desperately wanted to lean on his shoulder and sob my heart out. He only knew his daughter was unruly, but never imagined that I had truly been killed by her once. Even if I tell him the truth now, he probably wouldn't believe it, but I will definitely find a way to make him know the truth. Seeing my husband about to drag me away, Lily grew anxious and tried to stop us to speak again. I couldn't help but sneer at her and said, "Lily, you're always so attentive to my daughter's affairs. One might think you're her birth mother. Since that's the case, why don't you arrange her dowry as well?" I don't know which of my words struck a nerve, but Lily's gaze suddenly became evasive and panicked. She stammered, "What kind of talk is that? I've watched my girl grow up since she was little. Of course I care for her." Without another word, I simply took my husband's hand and left. That day when I got back, I only said one thing to my husband: "You're always away on business trips. You have no idea what kind of days I've been living through at home. If you dare to dissuade or stop me, then we might as well not continue this marriage." My husband was terrified, seeing how absolutely determined I was. He could only sigh in the end and say, "I married you, and you are the most important person in my life. As for our child, since she's willing, let her be." In the days that followed, no longer burdened by my daughter, I threw myself wholeheartedly into my work. My luck began to turn as well, as I successfully completed several major projects in a row, earning even my boss's praise. Back in the day, both my husband and I were top students. Somehow, we ended up with such an unambitious daughter. I used to be constantly preoccupied with family matters. Even at work I was always distracted. Now that I can focus wholeheartedly on my work, I feel like I've regained my former spirited self. Both my boss and colleagues say I look much younger now. A woman's worth is never confined solely to the household. That day, my husband had just received his promotion letter and was joyfully sharing the news with me over the phone, saying he wouldn't need to travel as often anymore and could stay home to take good care of me. Meanwhile, I also received a notification from my boss. The project bonuses from the past few times had been approved, amounting to a full 7-figure sum. As I stared at the sudden massive number in my account, my heart pounded wildly. I didn't tell anyone about this. The first rule of coming into wealth is to keep it secret. After calming down for a moment, I immediately used the money to buy a house in a development zone by the river. At that time, the location was extremely cheap. Just over $1 million could buy a nearly 200 square meter house, and no one was optimistic about it, but no one knew that in the near future, It would skyrocket into a bustling commercial district where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold by then. A single square meter there would cost a staggering $80,000. That evening, my daughter wasn't home. After taking a shower, I planned to scroll through my phone for a bit before going to sleep. Unexpectedly, on TikTok, I came across this trending local topic, #00s teen girl forced by mother to marry a delinquent #. It was anonymously posted by a user, detailing how Fiona had been abusing her daughter since she was a toddler learning to walk, preventing her from attending school, and resenting any sign of her daughter's well-being, ultimately driving the girl into severe depression. Now, for the sake of a dowry, she's forcing her to marry a delinquent who indulges in drinking, gambling, and all sorts of vices. Netizens were furious, flooding the comments with likes and responses. We're in the 21st century and this feudal relic of arranged marriages still exists. Is she jealous of her own daughter? This kind of mother deserves to die. If you can't raise a child properly, don't have one. Don't blame your incompetence on your kid. Someone doxed this vile woman. I'm so angry. That little girl is truly pitiful. My mother has always loved me dearly. I truly can't imagine there are mothers like this in the world. This woman is just an animal. Up, up, up. Let's boost this post's popularity. Not every woman deserves to be called a mother. Is this Lynn person short on money? Tell her to come find me. I'll burn it for her, as much as she wants. The mastermind behind this video is extremely cunning. The content she posted leaves me with no way to refute it. To use a popular phrase these days, my silence at this moment is deafening. These were all lies my daughter had told since childhood, so my first instinct was that she was behind it, yet I couldn't help but doubt. She had no reason to go through all this trouble. As I was pondering, my daughter called right off the bat. They're asking me for money. I'm out of living expenses with my partner. Send me 5,000 yuan. Right away. Hurry up, I replied slowly. I'm sorry, my daughter, your coming-of-age ceremony is just around the corner, and I've planned to make it a grand celebration. All the money I have has been spent on it. What rotten luck to have you as my mother. If you're broke, just work overtime to earn more. How could I end up with such a useless mom? The daughter angrily hung up the phone, although online rumors were rampant. Life had to go on. I put down my phone and went out to buy groceries. As I passed by downstairs, I saw a group of neighbors gathered together discussing something. When they saw me, without exception, they all showed expressions of disdain and contempt. Someone said in a tone neither too loud nor too soft, "What bad luck to live with someone like this." I always knew she was scum, but I never imagined she could be this insane. I pretended not to hear and walked past quickly. No rush. When my daughter's coming-of-age ceremony arrives, the truth will come to light. This viral TikTok trend finally came to a temporary end when the husband found a friend in the relevant field to handle the situation. A few days later, their daughter's coming-of-age ceremony arrived. Dressed in a gorgeous princess gown and wearing a heavy crown, their daughter stood proudly like royalty. Not only were all our relatives, friends, and neighbors present, but due to his recent promotion at work, many of his colleagues also came to celebrate. Everyone offered polite congratulations on the surface, but perhaps because of that trending topic, many people viewed me through tinted lenses. While I went to change clothes, I overheard someone outside calling out to my daughter, "My girl, is your mom really like what they said in that video?" Clearly, my daughter had seen the video too. She sighed and responded hypocritically, "Uncle, please don't say any more. I was born by my mother, so whatever she wants is fine." My God, do such mothers really exist in this world? But you're all grown up now. Why stay with such a toxic woman? Marriage is a lifelong matter. The daughters' lies have reached a level of seamless perfection. It's okay, I don't care about anything, as long as my mother feels better in her heart. She was about to add more fuel to the fire when my husband arrived. After a few angry words from him, she left with a cold snort, though my heart had been pierced by my daughter countless times before and should have grown numb. Hearing her enjoy my sacrifices while stabbing me in the back in front of outsiders still made my heart ache uncontrollably. I took a deep breath, forced a proper smile, and went up to greet the guests. As fate would have it, Lily also came. To my disbelief, she actually gave my daughter an extremely valuable jade bracelet. I couldn't help but speak up. "Isn't that the jade bracelet you've been wearing since college? I think you mentioned it was a family heirloom from your grandmother." Lily smiled and said, "I've never married or had children all these years, and I've always treated your daughter as my own. Didn't you agree to, Fiona, to let my girl recognize me as her godmother? It just so happens that today we're holding the godparent recognition ceremony, so this jade bracelet can be my gift to my goddaughter." As she said this, many guests had gathered around. Her words instantly stirred up a storm, and some couldn't hold back their indignation, starting to criticize. "Look, it turns out there really are birth mothers who can't compare to godmothers in this world. The contrast couldn't be more striking." Indeed, not everyone possesses that human touch. Some are human, others are beasts. No, even tigers don't eat their own cubs, truly heartless, daring to push their own daughter into any pit of fire. The last sentence was also heard by Lily, who immediately seized the opportunity to pressure me. Fiona, I don't think you're that kind of person. Why don't you take this chance to make things clear to everyone? You never actually wanted your daughter to be with that little troublemaker, right? Before her words even finished, in the distance, Jack swaggered over with a gang of his dubious friends in tow. They were a rowdy bunch, some with bleached blonde hair, others with dyed white, dressed in denim jackets and ripped jeans, slouching as they walked, smoking and occasionally spitting to the side. Such behavior was completely out of place in this resplendent hall, and their mere presence immediately drew looks of disgust from those around them. Jack remained utterly indifferent, summoning a waiter to fetch drinks as if calling a servant. Seeing Jack up close, Lily felt her vision darken and nearly fainted on the spot. She completely lost control of her emotions, pointing at him and shouting at me, Fiona, open your damn eyes and look. Can someone like this really make my girl happy? What are you yelling at Fiona for? My husband appeared, stepping in front of me, normally composed and restrained. He now pointed angrily at Lily's nose and shouted, get the hell out of here right now. You're not welcome here, senior brother. Lily clutched her chest in excruciating pain, tears welling up in her eyes. Her husband merely turned livid. Get out. Now, by this time, nearly all the guests had gathered here. Everyone exchanged glances, undoubtedly thinking what a venomous woman I was, and how my husband couldn't tell right from wrong. And Aunt directly pulled her daughter over and said loudly, Sweetie, today we're all here. So speak your mind freely. Do you actually like that? Little rascal or not, do you want to be with him? I refuse to believe that with so many of us present, your mother could still force you into anything. As they spoke, many people cheered in agreement, and quite a few took out their phones to record videos as evidence. However, something no one expected happened. The daughter suddenly shoved the woman away with force, staggered a few steps, and then crouched on the ground, retching uncontrollably. Seeing this, Jack also ran over. He pulled a piece of candy from his pocket and handed it to the daughter, saying casually, eat it, don't worry, it's sour. The daughter quickly unwrapped the candy and popped it into her mouth. After a moment, she let out a satisfied sigh, still mumbling with her mouth full, prepare a few more. My reactions have been really strong lately. At that moment, everyone realized something and took a sharp breath. They suddenly all understood why I had arranged this engagement for her. I'm afraid the one who suffered the most and felt the most despair wasn't her, but me. After eating the candy, my daughter covered her throat again as if about to retch. This time, with immense heartache, I stepped forward and asked her, Daughter, tell me the truth. Not only have you two already crossed the line, but you're even carrying his. The daughter's eyes darted quickly. She instinctively wanted to deny it, but Jack deliberately provoked me, sneering coldly, Yeah, we slept together, and she's pregnant now. What about it? She'd rather die than be apart from me. What can you do about it? I'll make you pay for always standing in our way. I just want to piss you off to death. After he said those words, a sudden sense of relief washed over me. You bastard. I pretended to be utterly devastated, taking a few steps back before collapsing into my husband's arms in tears. The hall erupted into chaos in an instant. Phrases like minors experimenting with forbidden fruit, shameless, full of lies, and worse than animals were all hurled at them. The foul language that once belonged to me has now been returned to them twofold. Some neighbors even began to doubt every word my daughter had ever said, believing someone who could do such a thing and frame their own mother surely wouldn't speak a word of truth. All these years, we must have wronged Fiona. The husband stared dumbfounded at the scene, frozen for a long moment before snapping out of it and lunging to punch Jack, only to be yanked back by me with all my strength. Meanwhile, Lily suddenly threw herself at her daughter with reckless abandon, forcibly dragging her toward the exit. Jack tried to stop her, but she snarled and shrieked like a rabid dog, terrifying everyone into backing off. Her daughter, now utterly drained of strength, could only bite Lily's hand, yet Lily seemed completely numb to the pain. Watching their retreating figures, I was lost in thought. Suddenly, it struck me that the two of them bore an unexpected resemblance to each other. Indeed, upon closer reflection, they both had the same slender, phoenix-like eyes and similarly full, rounded lips, quite unlike me or my husband. The coming-of-age ceremony was abruptly terminated when the daughter vomited in public due to morning sickness. I heard that Lily took her daughter to the hospital for a checkup, and when the pregnancy results came out, she broke down in tears on the spot. It suddenly occurred to me that during my own pregnancy, Lily inexplicably disappeared for several months, and during The time I was about to give birth, a nurse told me that a so-called friend of mine had visited me multiple times when no one was around. That afternoon, I collected hair samples from both of them and tipped them to an authoritative institution for a paternity test. This time, my husband was truly furious and severed the father-daughter relationship with our daughter. What disappointed him most was that our daughter could actually fan the flames and allow others to smear me, completely abandoning the basic moral principles of being a human. Although our daughter often acted domineering toward me, she was still afraid of her father. After making 2 scenes and realizing he was determined to disown her, she simply threw out harsh words. "I don't care to stay in this house anymore. I'll live well with my boyfriend." But she was wrong. After leaving me and her father, our daughter's life instantly fell from heaven into hell. I heard that ever since our daughter got pregnant and moved in with Jack, he became a completely different person. Not only did he completely abandon his previously gentle demeanor, coming home drunk every day, but he also beat and cursed her, demanding money from her. He even brought other women home right in front of her, forcing her to sleep on the sofa. If their daughter dared to say even one word more, he would immediately beat her and even threaten to kill her with a knife. Once, when Jack was drunk and beating their daughter, a neighbor couldn't stand it anymore and intervened, advising the daughter to leave. The daughter said, "Youth is always painful, but love can ease the pain. I know he loves me, he just couldn't control his temper for a moment and didn't see his own heart clearly. It's all those wild women outside seducing him. His heart clearly belongs only to me." With such a love-struck mindset, people gradually stopped caring about her. It is said that during the worst incident, Jack asked his daughter for money, but she truly had none left. Under his violent beating, his daughter nearly had a miscarriage and was rushed to the hospital by ambulance that night. However, the child was ultimately saved, and Jack, in tears, knelt down to apologize, and his daughter forgave him once again. The next time I saw my daughter was in a somewhat viral video online. My daughter appeared on camera with a prominent belly, tearfully accusing me of abandonment. Lily also accompanied her in front of the camera. The two performed like a duet, echoing each other's words, wiping her tears. My daughter said, "Since childhood, my mother has mistreated me. I had to work part-time to pay for my tuition and living expenses. I was washing dishes during summer vacations in elementary school." Lily also looked pained. "I can testify. I'm Fiona's best friend. I often saw the child's hands soaked in water, terribly red and swollen. It always made me cry." The daughter started sobbing again. "I know many people look down on me for being young and pregnant before marriage, but put yourselves in my shoes. If you were trapped in an utterly suffocating family, and suddenly someone treated you kindly, wouldn't you lose yourself in it? I just longed for a warm family. What's wrong with pursuing love? If someone treats me well, why can't I be with them? But now my boyfriend and I don't have the financial means, and my mother has completely cut off all my living expenses. I really have no way out. I want to ask everyone, as a mother, should she just stand by and watch her own child die? Netizens are divided into 2 camps. One believes she deserves it for not loving herself and willingly sinking into depravity. The other camp believes all her misfortunes stem from having a despicable and shameless mother, making her pitiable and tragic. My daughter goes live every day to accuse me, and by receiving gifts and promoting small products, she's actually managed to earn quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, all that money was taken by Jack for drinking and gambling, and my daughter's life didn't improve at all. Just like in my past life, my daughter clung to my bones, sucking every drop of my blood to fuel her insatiable ambition. But none of this shocked me the most. What truly stunned me was how much my daughter had aged in just a few short months. Even thick beauty filters couldn't hide her wrinkles and bags. Despite her young age, her hair was falling out in clumps. His face was always covered in bruises. The husband was furious. This ungrateful daughter, slandering her own mother alongside outsiders. I'll set the record straight right now and expose their true colors to everyone. I smiled and stopped my husband. It's not the right time yet. Our daughter is enjoying herself at Jack's place. Let her indulge a little longer. When she's had her fill, I have a special gift waiting for her and Lily. The paternity test results were already in. The DNA of my daughter and Lily conforms to genetic inheritance patterns, with a paternity probability exceeding 99%. No, I shouldn't call her daughter anymore. I should call her by her name, Alice. During this period, I've mobilized all my connections to track down the doctor who delivered me at the hospital involved in the incident, as well as Lily's former scumbag boyfriend. The truth that has been buried for 18 years is about to be fully uncovered. My husband tenderly rubbed my hair, saying with heartache, "It's all my fault. I've been so busy with work all these years, leaving all the mess to you." But I knew it wasn't his fault. Back then, I indulged Alice unconditionally, buying her whatever she wanted, unable to bear seeing me exhausted from overtime work. My husband chose to work himself to the bone to support our family alone. When it comes down to it, I also bear undeniable responsibility for how things have turned out today. The TV was on, and the news anchor was talking about how the Riverside area had been developed, with housing prices skyrocketing, skyscrapers springing up everywhere, and commercial capital expanding at an astonishing rate. My husband couldn't help but sigh. Back then, no one wanted those houses even at half price. No, I couldn't afford one even if I worked my whole life. If only I'd had the foresight to buy there back then, you wouldn't have had to suffer. It's my fault. Who says so? I mysteriously pulled my husband into the bedroom and pulled out a little red booklet to show him. Here. Your birthday is coming up. I secretly used my project bonus to buy an apartment behind your back, registered under both our names. Go ahead and take a look. The moment the property deed was opened, my husband's mouth gaped wide enough to fit an entire egg. That day, as I returned home from work with groceries, a neighbor auntie stopped me. We misunderstood you before, and now we realize it was all our fault. You're actually very polite and kind. She spoke with visible embarrassment, then suddenly turned serious. By the way, you weren't home this afternoon, and your daughter came by again with her big belly and her boyfriend. I overheard them whispering about bringing people over to pressure you into taking out the property deed to sell for money. I froze. I knew Alice was shameless, but I never expected her to be this shameless. After hurriedly thanking the neighbor, I rushed home and told my husband about it. My husband found a moving company, and we moved all our belongings to the new house overnight. Fortunately, I had already arranged for someone to clean the new house beforehand, so after a round of tidying up that evening, we were able to settle in comfortably. Now, the neighbors have voluntarily become my informants. The next day, several kind-hearted neighbors kept calling me to report on the situation over there. Early in the morning, Alice and her boyfriend showed up with several young troublemakers carrying sticks, banging on the door so hard it nearly broke. When no one answered after repeated attempts, they started harassing the neighbors and only then found out we had already moved away, but no one would tell them the exact address where we currently live. If it weren't for those delinquents being present, the neighbors would have pointed at Alice's nose and scolded her harshly. In the end, those men, extremely dissatisfied, redirected all their anger toward Alice and demanded she give them money. Not only did Alice's boyfriend not speak up for her, but he also joined the others in shoving her and even slapped her across the face. I heard these words without feeling the slightest pity. This was all Alice's own doing. My gaze fell upon a document on the table, an investigative report sent by the police. All the doctors and nurses involved from the hospital back then have been located. They admitted that during my difficult labor with severe bleeding, my child died right after birth. It was Lily who bribed them to switch her own child in. I had anticipated this outcome long ago, and I tightly closed my eyes. This farce is about time to come to an end. I contacted the hottest media reporters of the moment and then called Alice, sending her my current residential address. Alice, I said coldly, long time no see. As I suspected, Alice appeared together with Lily. They were even holding up their phones high, live streaming the whole thing. The live stream title is, Confronting the Evil Mother at Her Doorstep. I smiled. Now both my husband and I have lucrative jobs, with our combined monthly income reaching 100,000 yuan. Out of great generosity, I bought them a trending spot. Watching the live stream viewer count skyrocket, Alice and Lily were so excited their eyes turned red, thinking they were about to strike it rich. Alice shouted, "Folks, my wicked mom told me she lives here. Isn't that ridiculous? Don't I know how much money she has? She probably just made up an address to trick me. Don't I know my parents' salaries? Combined, they barely make over 10,000. She's never been capable of anything. Look, that woman is coming." With a beep, I swiped my card and walked out the door. Some viewers had already noticed something was off. I know this neighborhood. Only residents can enter or exit with a card. Are you sure your mom isn't secretly loaded? Streamer, a high-end neighborhood like this isn't for ordinary people. Even renting here costs 50,000 to 60,000 a month now. Anyone living here is definitely not average. Are you kidding me? I've seen that necklace around your mom's neck. It retails for over 300,000 on the official website. How could she possibly be poor? Alice panicked a little as she read these comments. Holy crap, just a few months apart and my mom actually struck it rich. Did she win the lottery or something? She looked at Lily for help, and Lily gave her a firm, reassuring look. It's fine. Now that she has money, she can just pay you child support. You're her daughter. All her assets will eventually be yours. After hearing this, Alice once again wore a smug expression. True, all her assets will have to be inherited by me sooner or later. TSK, this neighborhood is really nice. She raised her eyes to survey the neighborhood, as if already envisioning the life she would lead here, yet I simply smiled and walked right past them. Behind them were the reporters who had just arrived. Today, I have a major announcement to share with everyone. With the continuous vibration sounds, I smiled and raised my phone. I've already sent this paternity test report to everyone's phones here. I solemnly announced to everyone that this Alice, who has been clamoring about being abandoned by me, is not my biological daughter at all. I pointed at Lily and said sharply, but hers. I didn't expect that Alice wasn't surprised by this outcome. Her eyes were blinking rapidly at this moment, clearly indicating she had long known about her true origins. Lily, on the other hand, turned deathly pale. She immediately tried to lunge forward to shut down Alice's live stream, but the latter dodged out of the way. I clapped my hands, and from the side emerged a man with a crew cut, wearing a faded white shirt. Lily, do you still recognize me? When her ex-boyfriend appeared again, Lily's body trembled almost instinctively. She stepped back repeatedly, shouting, I don't know you, and stay away from me, you bitch. So you didn't abort the child back then, and even secretly swapped her with someone else's kid behind my back. How fucking low can you get? What, now you're pretending not to know me? Let me refresh your memory. The man grabbed Lily by the hair and began slapping her face repeatedly. Lily screamed in pain, continuously calling out Alice's name. Alice didn't even have the slightest intention to help. At this moment, all she could think about was how to lie and play the victim to maximize her own benefits. Oh my god, I just found out about this too. I never imagined I had such a background. It's so tragic. Abandoned by my birth mother the moment I was born, and now my adoptive mother treats me like this, but how could I give her another chance to fool the public? Alice, stop pretending. It's time for everyone to see your true colors. The next second, in front of everyone, I played the surveillance video of what Alice had done at home. The footage was crystal clear, and the audio was recorded distinctly. Alice looked like a demon with a twisted, ferocious face, frantically smashing everything in the house. If you don't agree to my demands, I'll spill blood today and make you collect my corpse, you old hag. Calling my dad won't do you any good. Poor trash. If you can't afford kids, why have them? Why don't you work yourself to death for money? Just die if you're broke, you worthless housewife. All you can do is laundry and cooking. Being your daughter is so embarrassing. Hey babe, that old bitch must have lost her mind today. She didn't give me a single cent. I really want to kill her. Is there any way to make her disappear without anyone noticing? At this moment, not only did the livestream audience explode, but the surrounding crowd also erupted in outrage. Beastly scum, such people don't deserve to live in this world. No, I'm so angry I could explode. I can't hold it in anymore. I'm going to slap her to death, to uphold justice. If you can't hold it in, then don't. Let's go together. You actually, so you've been pretending all along. You've been planning to set me up from the start. Facing Alice's trembling gaze, I silently smiled. Given a second chance at life, of course I'd be more cautious. Isn't it perfectly normal to install surveillance cameras all around the house? Just as bystanders were about to rush forward and hit her, Alice suddenly screamed, Mom, it was all my fault for being momentarily bewitched by that woman. Please don't abandon me. Everything before was taught to me by Lily. She's the one who drove a wedge between us, mother and daughter, and she's the one who posted those slanderous videos on Douyin. I couldn't stop her no matter how hard I tried. Her knees buckled, and with a thud, she fell to the ground, wailing loudly, Mom, you'll always be my mom. We've lived together for so many years. You still have feelings for me, right? Please, Mom, if you abandon me, I'll really die. I'll die with the child in my belly. Mom, I've truly changed. I'll take care of you in your old age. After all, I'm the only child you'll ever have in this lifetime. Can you forgive me? I just stood there numbly, letting her collapse and weep at my feet. At this moment when all the truth was revealed, I didn't feel the relief I had imagined. On the contrary, it felt like a knife had carved open my chest, leaving a burning, searing pain. 18 years, the best years of my life, had been ruthlessly destroyed by such a vicious conspiracy. I used to love gazing at mountains and rivers, but ever since having my daughter, my life has been completely confined to the daily grind of household chores. We had promised each other before marriage that we'd maintain the same carefree lifestyle as when we were dating, going on picnics, taking vacations, attending concerts, yet I've broken all those promises. Biting back tears, I looked up and said to her, I will never forgive. That day ended with Lily being taken away in a police car. Alice and Jack were disgraced, their TikTok accounts were banned, and they lost their only source of income, yet Jack still loved gambling and drinking, while Alice, being pregnant, needed regular prenatal checkups and other expenses. One night, Jack, fueled by alcohol, directly beat Alice until she miscarried. He himself was also arrested and imprisoned for intentional assault. Ironically, Alice even said she would wait for him to be released. She cried with snot and tears streaming down her face, shouting, "You're all I have left, Jack, no matter how long it takes. I'll wait for you." Jack's family vented all their anger on Alice, confining her at home and forbidding her from going out. As for what those people did to Alice, we may never know. Only later did we hear rumors of a mentally disturbed woman seen scavenging for food in the streets, who bore a striking resemblance to Alice. Later, a body was found by the river. They said it was a homeless woman who, driven by hunger, went to drink from the river but accidentally fell in and lost her life. Meanwhile, I was sitting comfortably in my 200 square meter house, enjoying tea and TV